Yeah, it feels like we're dancing around awareness, different levels of awareness, self-awareness, mood awareness, body awareness, and caring for our awareness.
Hmm. I could listen to Matthew talk about from a sensory point of view all day. It's quite eloquent on that subject. I'm wondering how much that ties in with that bodily, and we've mentioned embodiment and awareness, and how that ties in with Marianne sort of following joy, like this idea of like a joy compass or something inside the body or the head or the heart. I don't know. We've spoken about this, haven't we? The centers of intelligence, Matthew. Something going on there.
Yeah, I think if I mean this is exactly what I'm sort of working on at the minute, and in terms of something that I actually want to offer out into the world is that like how can we make our plans? It's really to make plans based on what other people expect from us, or what we think we should be doing, or what we think success might look like. And I know for me, I have to really grapple with outdated versions of what success looks like. I went through a phase where I was binge watching a program on TV called Suits, which is all about these very corporate American lawyers, and I had this real like pang of like, oh, maybe success should be wearing a really amazing dress and heels and going into a really fancy office every day. Like that what? But it's so funny how like my brain hasn't quite caught up with, well, what does a new version of success look like? And for me, that can only be guided by joy, and that can only be the sort of physical sensation of joy, not like the theoretical thing of, oh, I think this will make me happy, but that feeling of like, when you have a really good laugh and you're like, oh, and you feel kind of that warm glow, or if you do something that feels really, it might feel quite hard but quite satisfying. So for me, I get that if I write a song or if I talk to somebody and I feel like, oh, I've given them some insightful kind of if they've asked me for it and I give them an insightful feedback to me, well, whatever it might be, and it is that kind of physical sensation. So how can I be guided by the inner sense more than by that kind of like, oh well, I wear a certain thing or I look a certain way or I go to a certain place and everyone sees that I'm amazing. I mean, sometimes I want that too, but a bit of both.
Yeah, I wonder because I think a lot of us, our transitions were part of it anyway, was unlearning things that were not helpful, unlearning paradigms, unlearning expectations that we had agreed with that weren't helpful for us or for anyone else for that matter. Um, and I think also the Marianne, what you're talking about with the joy is. I'm not sure, but I think that part of where the joy comes from is when we're really able to be ourselves without fetters. Uh, um, we're able to just sort of show up as who we are without having to align ourselves with expectations that we think are on us from somewhere else.
Yeah, and I definitely subscribe to the school of thought that says like your sense of joy is your best guide to to what you should be here doing in the world. Like, so something that routinely makes you feel miserable and less like yourself is not a purposeful thing for you, whatever that is. Whereas the thing that you just genuinely feel joy and you don't have to manufacture it, it's just there. Like I really believe that is the best guide to your kind of core purpose, core gifts, core thing that you can offer in the world. And it's just like finding a way to remove the obstacles to that, or to kind of make it a bigger part of your day to day. So that's certainly the journey that I feel like I'm on at the minute.
Yeah, I think awareness is a big part of that, but unlearning things is also a big part of that. Letting go of things. Mark, how do you feel? Is that it kind of seems like you're the track that you've found yourself on is related to what Marianne's talking about, this joy thing.
I maybe there are aspects of it where there are things I want to do more of that I realise that I find really fun and enjoyable. But one of the sort of things that I come back to, and as someone that historically this sort of stuff hasn't come naturally to me because of the circles that I've moved in, I guess. I think when I find myself complaining about what I don't have access to, or what isn't working, where I'm frustrated in the business, in where I want to be, and what I'm not getting, I find that when I turn back to thinking about service and serving and how I can be of use, and I guess purpose, then that sort of calms that voice, and sort of turns that down. So I think, it has maybe more to do with purpose than it does to do with joy, but in that, when I start to think about where I can put myself to use, and then find ways that I can do that are fun and enjoyable, then it's then just a matter of chasing, like, how can I do more of that, please?
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mark, on the service thing, serving others. I think that was the thing that shifted me on the tracks, was knowing at some level that was the right thing to do, was to put myself in service of others, and for it not to just be all about me, which is, a surefire way to end up in a very dark place very quickly.
And it's weird because, like, we get told that we've got to look out for ourselves and we've got to put our own oxygen masks on, and that is all true. But it's, I guess, sometimes it's about doing that so that we can be there for other people, and sometimes it's just because, for me, just it helps quiet that selfish. What's the other thing? The hungry ghost. It sort of kind of seems to sort of quiet that voice down when I think instead about what can I give rather than what can I get. And that sounds like I was going to say self-serving, but it's the opposite. But it's like, sounds aggrandizing and sounds like you're trying to be a martyr or something. But I think, I don't know, there's something maybe not altruistic about that is, you're doing it to help yourself feel better. Tie myself in knots with that one.
I think for me, there's something really, it's about the intersection of the two things. It's about, for me, I somehow picked up a message that basically what I really enjoy wasn't of value to anyone else.
Yeah.
And that I could do one or the other, and that they were always in tension with one another. It was always a kind of, negative sum trade-off between the two. And what I am exploring now is actually the situation that is both in service of others and that I genuinely enjoy. And that feels like the more wholesome, in a literal sense, way of approaching this stuff. Because one of them is kind of, is charity in its worst sense, is the jumping in alongside someone else who's drowning, and the other one is utter self-interest at the exclusion of everything else. And I think there's something that's actually in the intersection between those two things. It's about helping ourselves and helping others at the same time. And that for me is really the exploration, and what that is when that isn't immediately available to you for whatever reason.
I really agree, and I mean it's that quote that I think we've probably all heard or seen in various places of, like, it's where your deep gladness meets the world's great need. It's exactly that intersection, but which on the face of it is quite, sounds simple, but I think can be very subtle and can be like almost a life's work to explore. Well, what is the deep gladness and what is the deep need, and how do they both go together? And I think it's that thing of, like, it has to start with self first, because if I'm not, like, solid in what I'm doing, and if I'm not enjoying it, then I don't have anything that I can transmit to others, right? But if it stops with me, then actually it won't grow, and then it won't kind of go anywhere. So I think that intersection is exactly where the good stuff happens, but maybe it's not always easy to get there immediately.